786-501-9206. Again, my name's Bill Gardner, the broker of Global Luxury Realty and a cold calling master. Okay, with that being said, the first things first, I like to have a contact management system, and I happen to use Market Leader because Market Leader is owned by Trulia. There's a million of them out there. They're all okay. This isn't a pitch for Market Leader. Top Producer is another really good one. I like Top Producer a lot. I might like it better than Market Leader, but I started with Market Leader clear back in early 2005, and so I've never changed. What's interesting about Market Leader is you can enter information about these people. Let me just move this down. Send listings here, put them on campaigns, all kinds of things that you can do here, like thinking about selling, for example, right? And now they're on that, and I'm going to put them on this season's greetings. What this does is it automatically they hear from us. So why would you care about this if we're talking about cold calling for listings, which is an excellent question. The reason why is because 99% of the calls you make aren't going to want to deal with you. So I always teach to go for the email and teach the customer to opt in once I send an email. Okay, because if they don't opt in, then they won't continue to get these emails. And that's what's important, is that they hear from us. Notice Bob is looking for a $316,000 single family house with at least 3 bedrooms and 2 baths in Boca. So you can actually send listings to Bob. So how does this relate to a FSBO campaign when this guy's clearly a buyer? The answer is every for sale by owner is a potential buyer, number one. Number two is I send them listings in their zip code so that they can see that more than likely they're an unrealistic seller. So this is why I have a contact management system open. The other thing that I do is I like to have where I get the leads from. In this example here, this is just a Craigslist ad that I hunted up because presently I don't, and for the foreseeable future, I do not intend on competing against you, so I don't purchase leads. So while we're there, we'll go ahead and talk about some vendors that you can purchase leads from. One being the Red X. X is an X-ray. Another one is Land Voice, like the land that we're standing on, and voice like I'm using, Land Voice. Another one is Mojo. There's, I'm sure, many others. Again, I'm not advocating one or the other, although I think I like the Red X the best of all of them I've seen. If there's another one that you're using that you like better, please inform me, because I literally learned about I beg your pardon, all of these from other people. So feel free. But since I don't have any of these that I'm presently purchasing for myself, I went to Craigslist because this is free. And I went to for sale by owner, and I just clicked on the first one. There was no phone number. Then I clicked on the second, and you see the address and a phone number. So what I would start with here is the MLS. So what I did here is I logged into my MLS, and I went on the tax roll, and then I can see who owns the property, and I can also see that their address is the property, which tells me they're in it. And then I'm going to click on this listing link to see there's no records found, which tells me that it's not on the MLS. And there is some history here that they actually had it for sale back in 01 and 11 with some real estate companies. And I'm not sure if these are still active links or not, but you get the idea. You can get all the information just by clicking around here on this. I'm just going to, just for fun, see where this takes us, because I haven't clicked it in advance and see what it tells us. And if we're just patient for my internet, no data is found. Okay, so if you are able to get information by clicking these links, it just gives you more information to talk to them about when you speak to them, and you'll look like really that you know what you're doing, and it's impressive. Okay, so with that being said, I would in this case go to my market leader and go to contacts and add a new, and before I even make that call, I have this screen up, right? And then I'd probably copy and paste a lot of this information into the information, like the address, the city, state, zip, how many beds, how many baths it has. So I've already got that information in here, and I'd probably go ahead and put Frank's name in here, and then I'd probably use the last name here, and that way I'm already ready with all the information in the contact management system. And I would do this as I'm dialing, right? Phone and email. So that's the only thing you need to get at the end, is to go for the email, which I'm going to talk to you about coming up a little bit later. So you see an example of being ready. I've found the address online here. I went to the tax roll, knew it was Broward, so I did a Broward tax search by putting the information in, the street and the address, and that's how I was able to get to this screen right here. All right, so a lot of this is getting ready, and I've found a lead, I've put them into my contact management system, and I've checked on the MLS to make sure that that it's not listed. Now, before I go any further here, I'd like to say this. I like calling leads that are at least 2 weeks old. The reason is because the new ones, everybody's going to be calling. And we want to wait till all the action dies down. So these people are going to get a million calls, and they're going to think their great marketing has gotten them calls, but yet it's Realtor. So after about the third or fourth one, lying to them saying they have a potential buyer, they're pretty much done with Realtors because they want to try to do it themselves. You need to wait 2 to 3, maybe even 4 weeks till they get the harsh reality that they are not so special after all. All right, so with that being said, I like to have 10 conversations a day is a good gauge. When I say conversations, it's we actually talk to somebody about potentially selling their house that you've never spoken to before, and about 30 follow-up conversations, because of these conversations, the majority of them aren't going to just jump up and list with you. You're going to have to follow up as much as 12 to 15 conversations with that same hot prospect. And after every time you speak to them, you're going to know whether you need to call them again or whether you just want to keep them on a campaign in your contact management system and send them listings. So again, let's talk about that for a second again. Why do we want them in our contact management system? Because 99% of them aren't going to do business with you anyways. Maybe it's 90%, maybe it's 80%. But the point is the overwhelming majority aren't. And if you can just send them information, there is going to be some small percentage of those that a year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or even 6 years later has happened to me, that they get in touch with you. I actually just had somebody I sold a property to back when I was producing, before I was solely concentrating on recruiting, where I sold a property to 8 years ago, and they contacted me through this contact management system because I kept sending them listings. Why? Because it's automated. I didn't even think about it. So people do contact you later and say, hey, we want to sell now and upgrade. Boom, it's 2 sales. So if you don't have the contact management system, you're not keeping in touch with people, you're not using the technology to work for you when you're not even working. So it's really, this is probably the most important investment you're going to make in your business. Some of the people on here, there's one gal who has been with me a long, long time, and I've been, no names mentioned, but I've said to her numerous times, more times than I can probably count that high, you got to do this. And what this does is it puts you in a position to get the easy business later on with minor investment. The other thing I want to say is try not to run out of your house. Close them on the phone. Many of you, like George is on this call, never met me. And I've met George now at our company picnic, but the point is you can get your point across just the same on the phone as you can in person. So if they're not going down on the phone, why do you want to waste your time running out to their house to try to get them to sign or make a presentation? So with all this being said, let's talk about how to initiate the call, because this is the most critical thing that I want you folks to get out of this, is how to make a call and initiate it without getting hung up on it. Because it would sound something like this: hi, it's Bill Gardner of Global Luxury Realty. I'm not interested, click, and that's all you get. So we don't want to do that. What I would say is slightly different. What I would say is, hi, my name's Bill Gardner with Global Luxury Realty, and I bet you don't want to work with a real estate company. Now, it's really important that you get the second phase of that out before they have a knee-jerk reaction and hang the phone up on you. Okay? So, hi, it's Bill Gardner, Global Luxury Realty. I bet you don't want to talk to any real estate agents. You can vary that to your personality. I bet you don't want to work with a realtor. I bet you're not thinking of working with any real estate agents. I bet you really don't want to hear from a realtor. Whatever you say, you have to get that out there first for a reason. And that reason is we want them to say yes, not no. So when you say, I bet you don't want to work with a real estate agent, that's an easy one for them to go, yeah, you're right. And that's the most important thing, is because they said yes. They don't understand this, but psychologically, you got them to take a step forward. And they didn't hang up on you. So the second thing that I always say is, and I'll start from the beginning so you hear how it flows. Hi, it's Bill Gardner, Global Luxury Realty. I bet you don't want to work with a real estate agent. Well, that's right, Bill. Well, I bet the reason is you don't want to pay a commission, right? And they're obviously going to say right to that as well. So see, we know that. They're not objecting to us. Really and truly, they're not objecting to paying the commission. What they're really objecting to is getting a smaller check when their house finally closes. Got that? They really aren't objecting to us or paying us a commission. So, and let me prove that to you. So I would say, again, from the beginning, hi, it's Bill Gardner, Global Luxury Realty. Bet you don't want to work with a real estate agent. Yes, that's right. And I bet the reason is you don't want to pay a commission. That's right. I'm going to ask them this question, though, because see, I've got them to say yes twice already. So now there I'm engaging them. I'd say something like this. Is it the commission that you're objecting to or the smaller check? And now they're not going to get that because they think the commission equals the smaller check. So I have to immediately launch into, let me explain myself. If you were selling your hypothetical house for $100,000 and got an $85,000 check and paid no commission, that sounds okay, but doesn't this sound better? Your $100,000 house, you get a $94,000 check and pay me $6,000. What sounds better? The $94,000 check does, because the reality is this. For sale by owners are usually successful, but they leave 15 cents on the dollar on the table, and they sell for 85 cents on the dollar. And this is a fact. The National Association of Realtors every year tabulates every single house that's sold, whether it's agent assisted or by owner. And statistically, they sell for about 85 cents on the dollar. Where I live, the neighbor sold her house by owner. She knew somebody wanted to buy it. And my wife actually listed a neighbor's house and sold it. And the price that the for sale by owner got was literally, in this case, it was 86 cents on the dollar. So that for sale by owner literally left about $50,000 laying on the table that they could have put in their pocket. But see, they were smart. They didn't pay any commission. They got a much smaller check, so what sounded better? Hire the agent and put the extra $50,000 in your pocket, or go around the agent, don't have to pay any commission and lose $50,000. Plus, guess who takes all the liability? Inviting unwanted strangers, not having errors and omissions insurance. There's a lot of work. If you check the wrong box on the contract, you cost yourself another, $20,000, $30,000, depending on how big the house is. Okay, so I want to get back here to the fact of the matter is they don't know that they're leaving money on the table. So our job is to educate them. And the way we do that is by having conversations. But you can't have the conversation until you get past the opening. So I'm going to run through the opening again from the beginning so you get an idea. It would sound like this. Ring, 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 hello. Hi, it's Bill Gardner of Global Luxury Realty. I bet you don't want to work with a real estate agent. That's correct. But you are trying to sell the house yourself, yes? And I bet the reason is you don't want to work with a real estate agent is you don't want to pay a commission, right? Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. What if you found out that I could actually get you more money than you can get you? Would you want to know how I would do that? And that right there is the crux. So, hi, it's Bill Gardner with Global Luxury Realty. I bet you don't want to work with a real estate agent. Yes, that's correct. And the reason is you probably don't want to pay a commission. That's correct. But what if I could show you how I could get you more money than you could get you? Wouldn't you want to know? Once they say yes to that question, which they're going to say yes to because everybody wants more money. And if they say they're not interested, then you know that you're dealing with what I call a knee-jerk. So when they're ridiculous, I like to be ridiculous. You mean you don't want more money? Let me ask you this. Nobody's going to force you into anything, but if I'm claiming I can get you more money, and that's really the reason why you're hiring a pro, wouldn't you at least want to, spend a minute listening how I would do that? You might just say I'm full of doo-doo and want to hang up, but what if I'm not? What if I can actually get you more money? You're going to want to know how to do that, right? So I am going to positively not move on in the conversation until I can have a conversation with them, teaching them how I'm going to get them more money. Okay, so you have to know this is where you're going so that when you initiate the call that you're not stumbling around. Now, let me talk about stumbling around and initiate the call. Remember, you're not experts at this. You didn't run a cold calling center for 11 years, so you're not in shape for it. So, anybody could run a marathon if they train. You don't go out and run 26 miles the first day. You might only be able to run a mile the first day. Hell, you might not even be able to run a mile. You might not even be able to run a quarter mile. But if you run a quarter mile today, you might be able to run a half a mile by next week. By next week, you might be able to even do 3/4 of a mile. You get the point. The point is that you have to first make some calls and screw them up so that you can get used to it. Or voice record yourself, or practice with somebody that you know. But you want to be able to make it flow right out. Hi, it's Bill Gardner of Global Luxury Realty. I see you're selling the house yourself. I bet you don't want to work with a real estate agent. See, nobody's going to hang up on that because it comes out strong, articulate, and flows right along. There's no place for them to say, I'm not interested. Because by the time they were ready to say not interested, you already told them they weren't interested, and they can agree with you. That is critical. You have to be able to get them to agree with the first thing you said, which is, I bet you don't want to work with a real estate agent. I just find that this is the easiest way to get them to say yes. So I hope that I'm ramming that point down very strongly. So once I tell them, I bet you don't want to work with a real estate agent, and I bet it's because of the commission, and then I'm going to go into, I bet, if I claimed I could get you more money than you could get you, you'd like to know how in the heck I'd actually do that, right? Now, one of the things people are going to say is, well, our house, $100,000 house, we want $150,000 for it. How are you going to get us more than that? Just go ahead and put your commission on it. Didn't say that it worked with unrealistic people. Okay, so one of the reasons why I use the contact management system, and one of the reasons why I will not necessarily want to even go there, is because what if their $100,000 house, they want $150,000 for it? What I understand about that person, they have not already made their mind up to sell the house. Okay. So with that being said, once I get through my opening that you don't want to work with a real estate agent, that the reason is you don't want to pay a commission, what if I can show you how I could get you more money? You want to know how I would do that? Well, a lot of people do want to know how I'm going to do that. So what I'm going to explain from there is how the National Association of Realtors tracks these things, and that they leave 15 cents on the dollar on the table. With that being said, why is it that real estate agents actually can get 15 cents more on the dollar? Does anybody know the answer to that? Well, here's the answers. First and foremost, who does a for sale by owner attract? Bargain shoppers. Why else would they want to buy directly from an owner but to save money? Okay, so with that being said, that's one reason why they leave so much money on the table. Okay, the second reason is that they're not attracting the people who are willing to pay top dollar, such as the first-time home buyer or a relocation buyer. All they're attracting is the people that happen to drive by, or the bargain shoppers that are professional real estate buyers that are trying to have them lower their profitability. So with that being said, we do attract those people where they don't, and we're able to get them those buyers. The other thing is people who have reached the stage in life where they can afford, say, a $300,000 house, they know they can walk into any real estate company in the city and hire a buyer's realtor for free who will show them all the houses, negotiate in their best interest, provide them errors and omissions insurance, etc., all free of charge. And they negotiate against that seller. So one of the reasons why what these people will say is, sure, if you have a buyer, we'll pay you And this is exactly what I just got through saying, Mr. Buyer or Seller. I beg your pardon, Mr. or Mrs. Seller. If I bring a buyer over, that buyer's my client, you're not my client. I'm negotiating against you, not for you. Which goes back to why you're going to end up selling for less as well. Maybe not just me, but any real estate agent is going to show all the comparables and try to lower the price. Now, here's some of the objections you're going to get, which I just gave you. Bring me a buyer, I'll pay you 3%. And I already rebutted that. One of the things they're going to say is, I still don't want to list my home. So what I want to talk about now is how to overcome objections and close the sale. The first thing that they have to understand is what a listing agreement is. Okay, remember, they don't know why it is they need a professional. They don't know. So when you ask them in the opening, if I could show you how I get you more money, would you like to know how I would do that? You're in effect opening the door to a conversation to teach them a few things. Okay? We already talked about they attract the professional house buyer that wants to lowball, etc., etc. So one of the big objections is their fear of not understanding the listing agreement. So another thing that I like to do is, while I am entering all this information in my contact management system, even though it's redundant, one of the things I like to do is go on my contact management system, go to my people, and enter them into my people. First, in my contact management system, for those of you that are here, I like dot loop, and I just click the add a person, and I'll put all their name in here and be able to go to their information later and put more information in. Then I like to have the contract management page open so that I can add a new loop. In this case, I would make the address 1277 Majestic Terrace, Weston, and now we can see how lovely my internet speed is. So I like to actually create the transaction for this address and add the listing agreement and add the property disclosure statement. Now, why do I do that? The reason why I do that is, I'm just going to call it 1277M to make it easier for me. And the reason I'm doing that is because I just want you all to see how I'm doing this. Let's see if we can just wait. Here's the reason is because I want to, for those of you that know me, I can't walk and chew gum at the same time, so give me a second. Type the word exclusive, right of sale listing agreement, and add it. The reason why I want to give them this exclusive right of sale listing agreement is because I want to be able to get it in their hands so I can explain it to them. One of the reasons why people don't move forward is because they don't understand something. Now, what if they understand 99.9% of it? You're not going to get a yes answer, and you're not going to get a no answer because they can't quite make up their mind because they don't know if it's the right thing or the wrong thing to do. With that being said, an education, you'll hear me say this again and again, is important. You also see why my internet connection is so slow, which is a little frustrating. So one of the things I like to do first and foremost is I like to put right here in the additional terms that the seller can cancel at any time. Seller may cancel at any time, no charge. I tell you, sometimes it's frustrating when your internet doesn't want to work. Okay, so that's not going to make it easy for us to see. One of the things that I think is most important for a listing agreement is to understand this paragraph 6. I'm going to read it all to you guys because I want you to know exactly what this says. Compensation: seller will compensate broker as specified below for procuring a new buyer who is ready, willing, and able to purchase the property or any interest of the property on the terms of this agreement or any other terms acceptable to the seller. Seller will pay the broker as follows: 6% of the transaction. Now, I want you to read with me this D. Broker's fee is due in the following circumstances. This is probably the most important thing for sale by owner to understand. If any interest of the property is transferred, whether by sale, lease, exchange, governmental action, bankruptcy, or any other means or of transfer, regardless of whether the buyer is secured by the broker, seller, or any other person, seller refuses to sign, fails to sign offer at the price and terms say in this agreement. So what this is saying is, if the property is sold, they get 6%, and if the seller refuses to sign at the exact listed price. So I don't know if you guys know what that means, so I'll try to put it into language. If you say that you're going to sell the property for $100,000 and you bring an all cash, no inspection, no contingent offer, and the seller refuses to sign that, you actually earned your commission and it's due. So my point here is no seller is going to do this. Even if they have it overpriced and you bring them a full price cash, no contingent offer, they're going to sell it, sign it. The real objection is going to come because they're going to feel like they're obligated on their $100,000 house to accept a $70,000 offer. So when they say no, no commission is due. The only way a commission would be due on a $70,000 offer on a $100,000 house is if they sign it and then we close the file. More than likely, they're not going to do that because they want $100,000. So what do we explain to the seller? We will counter offer or say no. And with that being said, what the seller now understands is that the only way they're going to pay a commission is if a full price, no contingent offer was presented, and secondly is if they negotiate a contract that they accept and it closes. Okay, so with that being said, the listing agreement only gives the authority for you to market it, and by doing so, putting in the MLS, now the whole world knows about it because it goes on Trulia, Zillow, and thousands of other websites like Realtor.com, etc. So all this exposure that they did not get before would have had to pay for, because see, they can list with you for free. And if you put in there they can cancel at any time, no charge, it is nothing but in their best interest to put it out there. There's no reason why it's bad, because just by signing exclusive right of sale listing agreement, they expose themselves all to the top dollar payers. They expose it to the world and every real estate agent in the world. Okay? By going by owner, you don't get that. which is huge. So every real estate firm has a website nowadays, and these listings go on their website, syndicate all over the globe. Okay, so when you can educate a potential seller that signing a listing agreement is the best thing in their interest, if not with you, with somebody, because then you get your advertising plastered across the globe free of charge. Free of charge, virtually no cost. And it allows you to present their property to the world. What's going to happen then is either the world group, they will respond. So if they don't respond, that is a response. That's telling the seller that the property is overpriced. So when you actually find out that their property is overpriced by doing sort of a market analysis, and you still take that listing and you don't get any response, I say to the seller, if you're selling pizzas and there's 10 pizza shops in your neighborhood and they all sell pies for $10 each, and you advertise more than any of them, but you sell them for 25, you're still not going to sell any pizza. That kind of hits home. So moving it from the top, the first thing I always do is open. And I talk to them about what you want to know, how I can get more money. I educate them on how I can. And really, I don't like to make presentations, listing presentations. I like to ask them a question. Do you know what criteria you should hire a real estate agent on when you do finally hire somebody? And the answer to that question is can you get the job done, and will you get the most money for the listing? I had a listing that fell in my lap, and again, I don't try to take them away from you. In fact, if anything, I like to pass them to my agents. But when somebody calls me and says, will you do this, I usually do. So, to make a long story short, I took a listing in a $170,000 neighborhood for $170,000, and I sold it in less than a week for $186,000. So if I would have taken that listing at $200,000, and I probably would have sold it for $170,000, and it might have taken 6 months. So by putting it priced right, I got everybody that was beat out on their last offers bidding for that house, right? Because everybody goes for the lowest priced property. So by doing so, I was able to get the job done and for more money. I sold a listing about a year or so ago. Again, this was something I did long before I was hiring agents. They were in my contact management system. They called me back. I listed for $975, sold it for $965. The point was that I got the job done. I got it done within 60 days, and I didn't give away a full percentage point of their equity. That's called getting the job done for the most money. If you're a global luxury agent, you can piggyback on that if you haven't done listings yet. Because that's really what the important thing is can you get the job done? Because that's why they want to list it, they want to sell it. And can you get the most amount of money? Okay, with that being said, what's the next thing that's going to happen is they're going to start giving you excuses why they can't, right? Those are called objections and stalls. So I just spoke to one potential agent that's on this webinar, or who was on that webinar, who decided not to join the company. Or she was still considering, was the words that we used, considering. So I want to talk about objections and words and not being afraid to burn the bridge. Because in every sales call, you're going to get a yes, or you're going to get a no, or some kind of clear future. The words considering are not a clear future. Okay, so I asked this person, what is it you're considering? Is there something I can clear up? And they didn't give me a committed answer, which is a polite way of saying, and in my opinion, a not polite way of saying no. Usually agents or anybody that you're asking to make a decision that doesn't give you a definitive yes or no or a clear future is usually not having enough strength to just say no. So what I try to do is let them off the hook by going something like this. You know, most agents that tell me they're considering this really don't want to join with us, because if they were interested, they would have already joined. So if you're not, you know, if you're still considering, you really just want to say no. Just go ahead and say no, and then we'll take you off of our list. So what's going to happen is they won't say no, which is every sales call begins when the objections start. Otherwise, you took an order and you got lucky, which I hope you do. And if you make enough calls, you're going to get lucky. But more than likely, you're not, so you need to have a formula. I call it the rebuttal formula. I want to give you an example of one. So this is how the rebuttal formula works. The first thing I always say is, I understand. And then I repeat what their objection is. Like, it would sound like this on a for sale by owner. Mrs. Jones, I understand you just really want to give it a shot yourself. So I use the word I understand. And the objection was, you know what, Bill, we're still going to try to sell the house ourselves. So the rebuttal formula would sound like this. Mrs. Jones, you know, I understand that you want to try to sell the house yourself. In fact, I hope you're successful at it. The only challenge is, do you want to get the most money for your closing? If so, I think I can help you more. So let's go ahead and give me a shot at it. Would you sign the listing agreement? And they'll go, well, I really wanted to just do it myself. Well, let me ask you this. Do you want to leave money on the table? Because if you list with me and you don't get the amount of money you want, then we'll do a counter offer and, you know, go for what you want. So you have nothing to lose. So we sign the listing agreement. So the formula is, and I'll summarize it, you smile, agree, and understand. So that's smile is number one, I understand is number two. Number three is repeat what they've said. Number four is answer it. Number five is close again. So smile and agree, understand, repeat what they've said, answer it, and close again. Smile, I understand, repeat what they said, answer it, and close again. I understand you want to try to sell it yourself, but if you list with me, you can cancel at any time no charge. And if you don't get your number, we can always counter offer. So would you sign the agreement, please? So I understand you want to sell it yourself is steps 1, 2, and 3. But with me, on a listing agreement, you can cancel at any time. And if you don't get an offer at the price you want, at least we'll be able to counter offer. That's the answer. And the close again was, so will you please sign? Let's get it started. Give it a shot. You got nothing to lose, really. In fact, you have more to lose by not signing. And that really is the crux. So that rebuttal formula needs, on the average, it's 12. Most salespeople quit at 3 to 5 attempts. It usually takes 12 to 15 attempts. So you keep using the rebuttal formula. Okay, with that being said, what you learned here today was an approach. Hi, my name is Bill Gardner. I'm with Global Luxury Realty. I bet you don't want to speak to a real estate agent. And then I'm going to ask them, I bet it's not the realtor or the commission even you're objecting to. It's more or less the smaller check. And once we do that, we want to explain to them how we can get them more money. And lastly is we want to make a presentation that we are in the business of getting them more money. Do you want to know how we would do that? And the answer to that question is because you're going to leave 15 cents on the dollar on the table. Then we're going to get all their information. They're still going to say no 90% of the time or better. And that's where we're going to say something along the lines of, and this is after we've rebutted them and presented to them. And we're going to say, you know what, how about this? Right? When you're really ready, I want you to, be one of the people that you actually call back. So is it okay if I send you an email with my contact information so that you'll have it in case you ever want to call me back? So understand the psychology here. You got past the opening by admitting that they don't want to talk to a real estate agent. They don't want to pay a commission. And you pique their interest by asking them, would you like to know how I can get you more money? And once you've got their interest, you can then ask them, doesn't this make sense? Can I send you this listing agreement here? Because I want you to read this paragraph 6 or 7 where it says the only time you're going to pay me is if I actually have a closing or I get a full price offer. I want you to understand that. I want you to see in writing that you can cancel at any time. And I've already overcome your objections and you're still not moving forward. That's when I'm going to ask again for their email and say, hey, look, I just want to send you my contact information so that if you are ever interested in selling with an agent, maybe, so big words were if you were, and maybe will call me back. Because then I'm going to send them out of my contact management system. I might even ask them, are you at your computer now? Did you get the email I sent you? Would you be kind enough to click the link allowing me to send this to you? Then I'm going to start sending them listings in their zip code. Why would I send listings to somebody in their zip code if they're thinking of selling in that zip code? Because more than likely they're not really ready to sell anyways. The statistics say that the overwhelming majority of for sale by owners are 28 months away. Now, let me give you just a couple other questions you can ask in the beginning, once you've gotten them to the point of wanting to know how it's done, or how you're going to get them more money. A good question you can ask them is, where are you moving to anyways? If they don't know the answer to that, chances are they're not going to list with you anyways, and that's why their $100,000 house is priced at $150,000. They're thinking, we owe $70,000. If we sell it for $160,000, then we'll have all this money and we can just move up. But they know it's not realistic in their heart of hearts. They're just seeing it. Some sucker will bite on it. So when you ask them where they're moving to, and they might say, look, we're tired of Florida. We want to move to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, where it's freezing cold in the winter. We're tired of this gorgeous winters. Not. Anyways, the point is they will tell you, if they don't know where they're moving to, they might say, look, we live in Weston now, but we're tired of Weston, we want to buy a condo on the beach. Now you can send them listings. You might even want to start showing them property. Definitely meet with them then, because that's a little bit more real. Or they might say, look, we have this house in Southwestern Ranches. It's huge. All of our kids are gone. We have no grandkids. We want to downsize. We're thinking of moving to Davie, right? So that gives you a more clear picture, and you can send them listings where they are presently and in Davie. I'd also, find 2 or 3 houses in Davie that I think are absolute bargains or must-sees, and try to make an appointment to show them those houses, even if you're trying to get a listing. Why? Because now you're showing them houses, which is a facilitation instead of a high-pressure sale, right? Allows you the opportunity to build a relationship. Now, there's another way that you can get listings, and that's off expireds. Expireds, I'd like to do this more on a one-on-one basis with you all. If that's the case, send me an email at bill@oneglr.com if you're not a company agent yet. And if you're a company agent, you know how to get a hold of me. I have a drop-off that says something along these lines. Hi, Joe, Susie, I stopped by your house today to talk to you about an important matter that needs your immediate attention. Please call me at your earliest convenience. Bill Gardner, 786-501-9206. That's going to get a rise out of people. They're going to go, what the hell is this all about? And some of them might use a little stronger language than that. What I do there is I only drop off 4 or 5 of them at a time, because half of them or better will call you back. I like to have the property report, the tax roll with me, because when they call, I'm going to ask them where, I send a lot of those, what's your address? And when they put 1277 Majestic, I'm going to look for it, and I'm going to see who owns that. I'm going to say, oh, Joe, thanks for calling. And they're going to be really upset with me and ask what this is all about. When I tell them Global Luxury Realty, they're probably going to beat me to the punch and say, I don't want to list my house. So I always say, I'm not calling to list the house. I'm calling to find out how you did on your marketability scorecard. And I have this little Word document that's it's like a survey. It starts with, does my house have better than average curb appeal? It ends with, was I priced over or under the market? 100 questions later. The marketability scorecard is all about getting them off of, I don't want to list my house, and gets them more on what I'm calling for, which is the marketability scorecard. And no matter what they say, I'm just asking that question, how'd you do on it? They didn't do a marketability scorecard. Nobody does. We don't either. We only use it as a tool to get in the house, because the question and the answer would be something along the lines of this. If you'd like to know, I'd be happy to score your house for you. No obligations. Even if they say we don't want to list, we're not interested in working with you, whatever their objection is, I keep repeating, I'm not asking to get hired to work with you. I'm not even sure I want to, but I'm still willing to do your marketability scorecard. And why wouldn't I want to, by the way? Because if their house is priced 10 or 20% over the market, if you take the listing, you're not a miracle worker, it's still not going to sell. And all you're going to do is piss them off like the last guy pissed them off. And it also helps them discover that they're overpriced, and you might be able to find out where they're moving to and why they want to sell. So that's what the marketability scorecard is. The main thing to understand about the drop-off, it will get them to call you, and you will be able to match up their phone number with their address and who they are, to put in your contact management system. And when they aren't interested in everything, you can end with the same thing. Hey, I don't blame you. That's totally fine if you're not interested. Is it okay if I send you my email just in case you ever want to call me back? You'll know how to get a hold of me. You have it electronically. Now, what if they hang up on you there, which a lot of them will? You still got their number. You know they're home. And you can always call them back tomorrow or later today when they've cooled off, and maybe actually have a conversation. Hey, we talked earlier, and I'm glad you called. I'm sorry I caught you by surprise. Really, I just wanted to find out how you did on your marketability scorecard when you did list your house. You know what your score was? Of course, they didn't do one, so you might be able to get an answer out of them then. And the whole idea is to get an appointment. So unlike the for sale by owner, where I'm advocating don't go on appointments, because I think you got to try to get a yes answer on the phone. If you do go out there, it is only to sign something, take photos, observe for yourself. I can't tell you how many houses I've listed and sold with never meeting the sellers or the buyers, for that matter. You just don't need to, because the seller can take pictures and email them to you. Then they can't yell at you for being crappy pictures, because it's their pictures. I like them to write the description because they wrote it, not me. If it doesn't get any calls, we know it's overpriced. I also like to set up the show assist and use the lockbox because I don't want to go there. I figure I'm just in the way. The buyer wants to experience it without people there pressuring them. They want to be able to feel the vibe and see if they like it or not. Okay? So with that being said, I like to automate everything. Use the lockbox, use the show assist. I always send the customer the request of who's showing the property. I want them to be able to call that agent if they want. If I alienate them, I let them out of the contract. I don't try to keep them in. All it's going to do is get a complaint against you. This also, they can call the realtor and ask him what the feedback is, and the other realtor has no listing agreement. It's unethical for them to try to get one from them. So they'll tell them, really, hey, your price is over, your house is overpriced. Hey, the pool is all green, you need some chlorine. The paint's all peeling. Whatever it is that they don't like, they'll be more upfront. It also shows whether they've actually getting showings or not. If anybody has any questions, feel free to raise your hand now, and I'll be happy to answer them. If not, I'd like to thank all of you for coming, and it doesn't look like we have any questions here. Close the space, questions. No questions were asked. All right, well, on behalf of myself and Global Luxury Realty, I might be having some issues with this GoToWebinar. Here, let me see. I do have some questions, but it's not letting me pull up who the attendees are either. Okay. Bear with me, everybody, while I try to figure out what I'm doing here. All right, Brandon has a question. All right, here's the questions. When they ask, what if I list it with you but find the buyer myself, do I still have to pay a commission? And we say yes, and they say, well, that doesn't seem fair. How do we do that? You can write, Brandon, in the additional terms. If seller finds buyer themselves, buyer doesn't pay a commission, this expires, and give them like 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, if they haven't done it, then it's yours. Or you might put in there, if seller finds buyer, I will write the contract, manage the whole transaction for a flat fee of $999. I just pulled that out of my hat, which is another thing you can do. Brandon also asked, when they ask, what if I list with you, but I guess it's the same thing. All right, let's see who else has questions. Robert, maybe if you unmute, people might ask a question. Darren, in the notes, I'm working on getting this up and on our website. It'll take a minute, so I'll work on that. Anyways, the rest of you, thank you very much for coming. If you haven't joined our company yet, we'd really like you to join. You're important to us. We're sitting at 298 people, and we sure would like to hit that 300-person barrier. And Chris, thanks for your tips on how to use GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to end the webinar now. And again, thanks so much. Bye-bye.